Chapter 1. The Non-Believer and the Magician. Valentine's decorations had begun creeping into the office like a glittery disease. Pink and red hearts clung to the corners of cubicles. Paper roses sprouted from coffee mugs. A heart-shaped balloon bobbed just above Milo's monitor, tied to his desk by some deranged optimist from HR. He popped it with a pen. "Charming," murmured Sienna, his editor, arms crossed as she leaned against the edge of his desk. "Is that how you treat love, Milo? With a sharp object and a blank stare?" Milo didn't bother looking up from his screen. "Love is a corporate hallucination. I'm just giving the illusion what it deserves." Sienna rolled her eyes. She wore a bright red blazer that matched the crimson ink of her editorial pen, both of which terrified Milo. "How fitting, then, that I'm assigning you the Soulmates special for our February issue." Milo blinked. "Please tell me that's a threat and not an actual sentence." "It's both." She dropped a folder on his desk. "Think of it as character growth. Or revenge. Honestly, either works." He opened the folder reluctantly, squinting at the names listed under the planned features. A psychologist specializing in romantic attachment, a florist who matched couples based on bouquet choices. And, "Oh no," Milo groaned, pointing. "Absolutely not. No way." Sienna grinned, teeth sharp. "Zane Asfer, the Velvet Mirage's own illusionist/heartthrob. You know him, right?" "Vaguely," Milo muttered. "He used to date Nora in editorial. He came to the Christmas party 3 years ago, pulled a coin out of my hair, and winked. I've never forgiven him." "Perfect," she said sweetly. "You already have history. Now go get his thoughts on fate, love, and whether he believes in predestined hearts." She tapped her pen against the desk. "And try not to murder him with sarcasm. Or do. Either way, give me 2,000 words by next Thursday." Milo sighed so deeply his soul left his body. 2 days later, he found himself sitting on a velvet couch in the lounge of the Velvet Mirage, the most opulent theater in the city's arts district. Gold sconces glimmered along the walls. Crystal chandeliers hung like enchanted fruit from the ceiling. Everything screamed mystery, spectacle, drama. And there, stepping into the room like he owned every molecule of air inside it, was Zane Asfor. Tall, effortlessly poised. His black curls were artfully disheveled, as if he'd just walked through a wind tunnel and somehow made it couture. A navy waistcoat clung to his torso with alarming elegance. The sleeves of his white dress shirt rolled to his elbows, revealing strong forearms dusted with just the right amount of hair. His smile, God, that smile, was both warm and infuriating. "Milo," Zane greeted, voice smooth as poured espresso. "Still wearing cardigans like they're armor against charm, I see." Milo stiffened. "Still using stage lighting as an excuse to blind your audience into believing you're interesting?" Zane's eyes gleamed. "Touché." He extended a hand. Milo shook it, reluctantly. It was warm, confident, and lingered half a second longer than it needed to. "Interview me," Zane said, dropping onto the couch opposite Milo and lounging like a prince awaiting worship. "Let's talk about Soulmates." Milo activated his recorder and opened his notebook. "Fine. First question. Do you genuinely believe in that crap, or is it just branding?" Zane tilted his head, amused. "Belief is the foundation of magic, Milo. Not just in tricks, but in people." "That's not an answer," Milo replied. Zane leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. "I believe in soulmates. Completely." Milo scoffed. "So somewhere out there is a person fated to match you in every way? That sounds exhausting." "Not every way," Zane said, "just in the ways that matter." Milo tapped his pen. "Have you ever met this alleged soulmate of yours?" Zane's lips curled slowly. "I think so." Milo blinked, startled. "That wasn't in the briefing." Zane shrugged, unbothered. "Wouldn't be a very good magician if I gave you all the answers up front, would I?" Milo fought the warmth creeping up his neck and glared down at his notebook. "So what? You're in love right now?" "I didn't say that." "But you think your soulmate is out there?" "I think," Zane said gently, "he's much closer than he realizes." Milo's pen slipped. Zane leaned back, watching him with a lazy, pleased expression. "You're so easy to rattle, it's endearing." "I'm not rattled," Milo snapped. Zane's grin deepened. "Sure." They talked for another 20 minutes, though the line between interview and banter grew increasingly blurry. Milo asked questions. Zane deflected with stories that sounded made up, but felt honest. There was a moment, brief but real, where Zane paused, looked at Milo like he was something delicate and strange, and said, "You know, most people are so busy trying to find a perfect fit, They forget that sometimes soulmates aren't puzzles, they're mirrors. And Milo didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't. Instead, he stood. I have what I need. Thanks for your time. Zane stood too and handed him a sleek black card. Milo frowned, reading the words written in sharp silver ink. One impossible thing before next week. Come see. Below it was the time and date of a show. Private audience. One night only. What is this? Milo asked warily. Zane stepped closer, just a breath away. His eyes were steady, dark, impossibly sincere. A challenge? You don't believe in soulmates? Good. His smile tilted. I love a challenge. Milo blinked. You're delusional. And you're intrigued, Zane replied, already walking away, hands in his pockets. Back at his apartment, Milo tossed the card onto his kitchen counter, poured himself a glass of wine, and tried to forget Zane's eyes. It didn't work. The next morning, he found himself slipping the card into his wallet. Just in case. At Modern Myth, Sienna slid past his desk, a smug expression already forming. So, did the illusionist hypnotize you into writing a love poem yet? No, Milo said, then hesitated. But he did invite me to some kind of private show. Sienna's eyebrows arched like she'd just struck gold. You have to go. Why? Because if you don't, I'll assign you to interview that pet psychic again. The one who tried to read your cat's aura and called it emotionally constipated. Milo sighed. Fine. Saturday night, Velvet Mirage. Milo stood in a black turtleneck and slacks, staring up at the theater sign, like it might bite him. Inside, an usher handed him a single red rose and led him to a small balcony seat overlooking the stage. He sat. The lights dimmed. And then Zane walked out. No dramatic music, no smoke, just him and a single spotlight. Tonight, he said, his voice echoing, we're not here to prove anything. We're here to ask one simple question. What happens when you stop pretending not to believe? Milo's heart did a weird, traitorous thing in his chest, and in that moment he knew Zane wasn't just putting on a show, he was coming for him. With every smile, every trick, every impossible thing. And somehow, that terrified Milo more than anything else in the world. Chapter 2. Don't Fall for the Sparkles. Milo sat near the back of the Velvet Mirage, arms crossed, notebook unopened on his lap, eyes narrowed at the red velvet curtain like it owed him money. He wasn't here because he wanted to be. He was here because Sienna had cornered him in the break room, pointed a teaspoon at his face, and said, You owe me a follow-up. He invited you to a private show. That's story gold. Go, enjoy yourself. Maybe fall in love a little. Live a little. Milo had laughed at her, sharply, nervously, but now he was sitting under a crystal chandelier, surrounded by murmurs of excitement and whispers of, I heard he made someone vanish for 30 seconds last time. He was ready to tear the whole thing apart. He really was. And then the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the room, and Zanus IV stepped into the spotlight. Damn him. He wore all black, simple yet perfectly tailored, with a subtle shimmer to his blazer that caught the light every time he moved. He didn't use smoke or dramatic music. He didn't even speak at first. He just smiled, slow and wicked and warm, and made a silver coin appear between his fingers. The audience gasped. Milo didn't. Well, not out loud. Zane glanced around the crowd, his gaze finally locking onto Milo's. He winked. Milo immediately looked down at his lap, pretending to write something, only to realize he was scribbling nonsense into the margins of his grocery list. Ladies and gentlemen, Zane began, his voice calm, rich, smooth as honey, what you're about to witness has nothing to do with deception, nothing to do with trickery. What I do is about belief. He turned his hand. The coin was gone. People applauded. Milo rolled his eyes but found himself leaning slightly forward. For tonight's act, Zane continued, I'd love to borrow someone special from the audience, someone skeptical, someone who doesn't believe in the impossible. Milo's stomach dropped. Zane's eyes sparkled. Someone perhaps who's here under duress. The spotlight shifted. Directly. Onto Milo. The crowd chuckled. Milo froze. Zane, utterly composed, spread his arms. Milo? Milo's face burned. Nope. The crowd laughed again. Zane smiled with that infuriating gentleness. Fair enough. Consent is the first rule of magic. And just like that, he turned away. Instead of dragging Milo on stage, he turned his attention to a single coin in his palm. This coin, he said softly, is real, solid, tangible. But if I place it here, he set it on a stool, and ask you to close your eyes, do you still believe it's there when you can't see it? He picked it up again. Some things vanish unless you believe they're real. He closed his hand. When he opened it, the coin was gone. Completely. Not in the theatrical way Milo expected. There was no flourish, no cape, no quick movement, just quiet impossibility. The audience gasped, and despite himself, Milo's heart skipped a beat. Back at the office, Sienna was practically foaming at the mouth. He played with the philosophical implications of metaphysical presence and emotional doubt through a coin trick, she gushed, pacing behind Milo's desk like a caffeinated fox. It's genius. You're going again. Milo groaned. Sienna. Nope. You're doing a multi-part feature. Give the readers drama, suspense, sexual tension. I'm not dating him. Pity. Milo pinched the bridge of his nose. This is starting to feel like entrapment. Sienna patted his shoulder. Only if you hate joy. Zane's first invitation to rehearsal came 2 days later via an email that simply read, subject for research. Milo. If you're going to write about what I do, you should see how it's made. Come watch us rehearse Tuesday at 4. Don't wear beige. Z. Milo wore navy, just to spite him. The rehearsal space was tucked in the back of the theater, a high-ceilinged room filled with ropes, mirrors, and strange props. Milo didn't even want to try identifying. Zane was already mid-conversation with a petite woman in a headset, gesturing with one hand while twirling a red silk scarf with the other. When he noticed Milo, his entire expression changed. Softer. Brighter. It did. Things to Milo's insides. You came, Zane said, walking over with that cat-like grace. Beige-free. I'm impressed. Milo gestured around. So this is where the smoke and mirrors are born. Mostly mirrors, Zane said. The smoke's just for show. Milo watched the crew move around, amazed at how focused and fast everyone worked. Zane wasn't barking orders like he expected. He was collaborative, listening, laughing, encouraging. He was gentle. Zane offered him a stool. You can take notes, or just enjoy the show behind the show. Still not buying it, Milo muttered. That's okay, Zane replied. I'm not selling. I'm showing. The rehearsals turned into a routine. Zane invited him every few days. Milo started saying yes more than no. He'd sit on that same stool and pretend to scribble while secretly watching how Zane's smile changed depending on who he was talking to, how he always made time for his team, how he never rushed, how he made even the most bizarre illusions feel intimate. And Zane started flirting harder. Never rude, never inappropriate, just soft teasing. Little comments like, you wear cynicism like a suit, but I bet it wrinkles when you laugh. Or, I could make anything disappear, Milo, except the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. Milo pretended not to hear, pretended not to care. But one day, Zane asked the crew to take 5 and called Milo over. I want to try something new, Zane said. It's not for the audience, just for you. Milo raised an eyebrow. Am I about to be sawn in half? No, Zane said, stepping closer. Just unlocked. He stood in front of Milo, slow and patient. Then, very gently, he reached behind Milo's ear. Milo flinched. What are you? Zane pulled his hand back and revealed a small, old-fashioned key. Milo stared at it. Zane's voice was quiet. You've locked yourself in so tight, I'm just finding ways to get through. Milo's heart did a full somersault. He opened his mouth to respond, but couldn't find words. So instead, he shoved his hands into his coat pockets and muttered, I'm allergic to velvet. That's why my face is red. Zane didn't call him out on it. He just smiled. The kind of smile that said, take your time, I'm not going anywhere. That night, Milo lay in bed staring at his ceiling fan. There was a key on his nightstand. He didn't remember putting it in his pocket. He picked it up, held it in his palm, and for the first time in a long time, he wondered, what if believing wasn't the trap? What if it was the trick that set him free? Chapter 3, The Art of Wooing a Skeptic. It began with a text. Want to see something weird and maybe illegal? You have got to stop starting conversations that way. But you're curious now, aren't you? Milo showed up 20 minutes later at a corner of the arts district that smelled like caramel popcorn and graffiti. Zane was waiting, leaning against a lamppost with 2 cups of coffee and a crooked smile. He handed one to Milo, who sniffed it suspiciously. What's in this? Milo asked. Belief, Zane said solemnly. Milo took a sip. This is oat milk and mild emotional manipulation. Zane winked. Close enough. That was how their so-called research adventures began. Zane insisted it was all part of Milo's investigation into how perception shapes reality, but Milo wasn't stupid. He saw the smirk Zane tried to hide every time he said field work. Still, he kept showing up. They watched a man juggle knives while balancing on a chair in the middle of a crosswalk. They attended an underground hypnotism show that ended with an investment banker confessing to a childhood tap dancing career. Zane took Milo to a cat cafe, where none of the cats existed. Just elaborate projections, purring and licking their paws through augmented reality headsets. Each time, Zane asked him the same thing afterward. Did it feel real? And each time, Milo would shrug and mutter something non-committal like, maybe, or your definition of real is deeply flawed. But the truth was harder to shake. He'd started to enjoy Zane's company in a way that felt dangerous, addictive, like a card trick he couldn't figure out and didn't want to. On their fifth outing, midnight pancakes at a 24-hour diner shaped like a flying saucer, Zane stirred his coffee and asked, "When did you stop believing?" Milo blinked. "In what?" "In all of it." Milo looked down at his plate, where a pancake shaped like a heart stared back at him in syrupy defiance. He hesitated, then pushed the plate away. "There was someone," he said finally. "Leo. We dated for a year. He said we were soulmates. Used the word all the time. I thought it was overkill, but sweet." Zane stayed silent, letting him talk. "Then one day he just left," Milo continued. "No warning, said he realized he'd forced the whole thing. That it wasn't real. That he was trying to fit us into a fantasy." Zane's brow furrowed. "That's not your fault." "I know," Milo said. I realized maybe soulmates are what people say when they want something to feel bigger than it is. Like putting glitter on a bruise and pretending it's jewelry." Zane reached across the table, lightly tapping Milo's wrist. "Or maybe some people just don't deserve the word." The next night, Zane brought him to a rooftop garden above a ramen shop. There were string lights woven through metal scaffolding, old crates turned into benches, and a single telescope pointing toward the stars. Zane pulled a flask from his coat and handed it to Milo. "Spiked cider. Don't worry, it's safe. I had Harper test it." "Is Harper your scientist?" Milo asked. Zane laughed. "No, Harper's my cousin. Fierce, protective, unimpressed by my entire existence." "And you trust her judgment? She once punched a guy for saying love isn't real." Zane said cheerfully, "So yes." Milo snorted. They drank, talked, shared a blanket when the wind picked up, and just when Milo felt his guard lowering, Zane pointed up at the stars and whispered, "My dad used to bring me here." Milo turned his head. "Yeah?" "He believed in wonder," Zane said. "Not magic, necessarily. Just wonder. The idea that the world still had secrets left. He died when I was 16. But he used to say that some people find miracles in science. Some find them in faith, and some, like me, find them in people." Milo stared at him. Zane wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to be impressive. He was just being. "You're impossible," Milo muttered. Zane smiled at him through his lashes. "Good. I was starting to worry I'd gotten boring." A few days later, Milo was lured to an industrial art gallery with promises of interactive light illusions. He wasn't expecting to be dragged into a makeshift lounge filled with Zane's friends, an eclectic trio who greeted him like he was already part of the club. Dima, a punk hacker with lavender hair and a trench coat covered in wires, clapped him on the back. "You're the journalist who thinks Zane's full of it. Love that. Keep him humble." Theo, a soft-spoken psychologist in round tortoiseshell glasses, gave Milo a kind smile. "Zane talks about you a lot." Harper, tall and terrifying in combat boots, narrowed her eyes. "Break his heart, and I'll end you." Milo blinked. "I'm not even dating him." "Yet," Harper said. Zane reappeared just then with a tray of drinks and a look of unrepentant delight. "I see you've met my fan club." Milo hissed at him like a cornered cat. But truth be told, it felt nice. Too nice. He didn't belong there, not really. But Zane kept finding ways to make space for him anyway. 2 weeks into their not dates, Milo showed up at his apartment to find a small wooden box on his doormat. No note, just his name etched into the lid in Zane's looping script. Inside were scraps of their time together. A receipt from the diner with best pancakes, worst soulmate scrawled in pen. A paper napkin folded into a swan from their ramen rooftop. A blurry photo of Milo mid-eye roll in front of the light illusion exhibit with a sticky note on the back. My favorite expression. Ticket stubs. Wrappers. A pressed flower. Evidence. Proof. A map of everything Milo had tried not to feel. He didn't say anything to Zane about it, but he kept the box on his nightstand. It happened on the roof of Zane's apartment complex. They were standing too close. Again, it had become a habit. Milo had said something sarcastic, something about how rooftop stargazing was just a cinematic excuse to flirt, and Zane had laughed, quiet and low. Then suddenly he stepped forward. Close enough that Milo forgot how breathing worked. Zane reached up, brushed a stray curl away from Milo's forehead, and whispered, "Just say when." Milo froze. The city lights shimmered below. The wind tangled between them. Zane didn't move, didn't push, just waited. And Milo, he didn't say no. But he didn't say when either. Not yet. So Zane stepped back, gave him a crooked smile, and said, "I can wait." And Milo, heart thudding so hard it echoed in his bones, whispered, "That's what scares me." Chapter 4, Something Real and Mildly Terrifying. The spiral began with a missed text. Then another. Then 5 more, left on read. Milo didn't know what he was doing, only that he couldn't keep doing this, whatever this was. He wasn't built for it. The softness, the vulnerability, the overwhelming ache of maybe when his entire life had been sculpted around definitely not. Zane had slipped past the walls Milo spent years fortifying, and now every moment, every look, every box full of memories felt like a countdown to catastrophe. So he did the only thing he knew how to do. He vanished. Well, not literally. He still showed up to work, grumbling into his coffee, snapping at Sienna when she asked about the article progress. But he ghosted Zane, ignored every invitation, skipped 2 rehearsals, 3 shows, and an absurd midnight invite to an after-hours bookstore that only sells love stories and illegal candy. By Friday, he'd rewritten the same paragraph 6 times, forgotten 2 deadlines, and growled at a very kind intern who offered him heart-shaped donuts. "You look like you're being haunted," Sienna commented dryly. Milo grunted. She handed him a sticky note. Leo stopped by. He froze. "What? Your ex? Tall soulmate this, soulmate that guy? He dropped this off." She pointed to the note. "Said it's his number, said you'd understand." Milo stared at the paper like it might catch fire in his hand. He wasn't ready for this. Zane, with his warm eyes and impossible patience, had already shaken Milo's foundation. But Leo? Leo had laid the first crack. Still, later that night, curiosity won. He texted. "You wanted to talk?" "I'm in town for a few days. Can we grab coffee? Just closure, maybe?" They met at a quiet bookstore cafe tucked between 2 yoga studios. Milo arrived late on purpose. Leo looked almost exactly the same. Crisp button-down, perfectly styled hair. The same confidence that once swept Milo off his feet like a charm he didn't realize was cursed. He smiled like nothing had changed. "Hey, Milo." Milo sat. "Hey." The small talk was stiff. Then Leo leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I've thought about us a lot," he said. "What I did. How I left." "You didn't just leave," Milo said flatly. "You disappeared, said soulmates were fiction and I wasn't enough to keep pretending." Leo winced. "I know. I panicked. I didn't understand what I wanted. And now?" Leo looked at him, eyes gentler than Milo remembered. "Now I do. I miss you. I miss us." There was a silence between them, a long, sharp thread that neither dared to pull. Milo should have felt vindicated, desired, maybe even relieved, but all he felt was hollow. Because the truth, the terrifying, trembling truth, was that he didn't want the old ache back. He wanted the one with the dark eyes and magic hands who made keys appear behind ears and whispered, "Just say when." Leo reached across the table. "Maybe we could try again?" Milo pulled his hand away. "I can't." "Why not?" Milo stood, heart pounding. "Because someone else already made me believe again. And I ruined it." Back at his apartment, the memory box stared at him from the nightstand like it knew everything. He picked it up, clutching it tight, and ran. Zane's building was quiet when he arrived, a light autumn chill prickling his skin. The security guard recognized him and buzzed him in without question. The door to Zane's apartment was unlocked. Milo hesitated, then pushed it open. He expected candles, music, some elaborate trick waiting in the shadows. Instead, he found Zane asleep on the couch, fully clothed, a takeout box on the coffee table, and a crumpled script beside him. His chest rose and fell in gentle rhythm. His curls messier than usual, one sock half off his foot. Milo froze. He'd come to return the box. Instead, he stepped inside. The apartment smelled like citrus and faint spice. There were shelves lined with books and strange trinkets, and tucked among them were photos of them. Candid shots of Milo on rooftops, at cafes, mid-laugh, mid-eye roll. One from that stupid hypnotist exhibit where he'd nearly fallen asleep standing. One of him sipping cider under fairy lights. All framed, all displayed like something precious. Milo's throat tightened. He placed the box on the kitchen counter and turned to leave. But then he heard it. A sleepy voice, barely above a whisper. "You're here, finally." Zane blinked slowly, still half dreaming. When his eyes met Milo's, a soft smile curved his lips. "Was starting to think I imagined you." Milo's voice came out hoarse. "I came to say goodbye." Zane didn't move, didn't panic, just nodded, his voice even softer. "Okay." Silence stretched. Milo stared at the box, then the couch, then Zane. His legs moved before his brain caught up. He sat beside him, not touching, just close. Zane's eyes drifted shut again. "You don't owe me belief," he murmured, "but you do owe yourself peace." Milo looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, breathed. He stayed. Not because of magic, or promises, or soulmate cliches, but because Zane, asleep and unguarded, made the room feel warmer. Because his voice didn't ask, didn't plead, didn't demand. It simply welcomed. Milo pulled the throw blanket over both of them and leaned back against the cushions. That night, he didn't dream. But when he woke, his hand was still resting just slightly against Zane's. And he didn't move it. Chapter 5. This Isn't Magic. It's You. The headline email from Modern Myth read, "Invitation, the Velvet Mirage's greatest illusion yet. One night, no second chances." Milo read it 3 times before Sienna dropped a printed version on his desk with a wicked grin. "You're going," she said. "Zane's team specifically requested you. Front row, press pass. Probably a rose on your seat or something." Milo tried to scoff. It came out like a whimper. "I'm not. This isn't." "Oh, shut up," Sienna said kindly. "Go write the damn feature. And maybe, for once, stop pretending you don't feel anything." She was gone before he could argue. The Velvet Mirage had never looked more alive. Outside, camera crews buzzed and fashionably overdressed people clutched invitations like golden keys. The marquee read, "Zane asked for the Truth Act." Below it, in smaller gold script, "Nothing escapes, especially the heart." Milo arrived early, underdressed as always in a black turtleneck and slacks, his press badge clipped to his collar like a shield. Inside, the theater glittered with anticipation. The stage was bare, save for a massive glass tank at the center. Chains, locks, no trapdoors, no escape. Harper met him by the backstage curtain, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "I was wondering if you'd show," she said. "I'm not sure I should have." Harper studied him, then motioned him aside. "You want to know something?" Milo blinked. "Do I?" "He makes it look easy, all of it. The charm, the confidence, the way he walks into a room like he's always known how to own it." Milo nodded. "But you," Harper continued, lowering her voice, "you're the only person who's ever made him nervous." That stilled him. "He talks too fast when your name comes up. He second-guesses his tricks when he thinks you might be in the audience. Zane is fearless on stage, but you?" She smirked. "You're the one thing he doesn't know how to control." Milo said nothing. What could he say? Rehearsal was brief, silent, focused. Zane didn't notice him at first. Or maybe he did and pretended not to. He wore all white this time. Something simple, clean, elegant. A stark contrast to the dark stage and the towering glass tank looming behind him. The act was risky, not in the literal sense. Milo knew Zane tested every lock, every angle, every second. But emotionally? It felt like a confession. The tank was filled slowly. Zane entered in silence. Each lock clicked into place with deliberate, dramatic rhythm. The lights dimmed. A single beam focused on Zane's face behind the glass. He looked at Milo. Right at him. And Milo forgot how to breathe. The house was full by the time the show began. Velvet seats brimming with critics, influencers, longtime fans, and curious strangers. But all Milo could hear was his own pulse. The lights went down. The music began, low, haunting, like a heartbeat in the dark. Zane emerged in silence. No dramatic speech, no witty preamble, just him, barefoot and serious, stepping into the circle of light. He held up a hand. The music stopped. "This act," he said softly, "isn't about escape." A ripple moved through the crowd. "It's about trust, about staying, even when it hurts, even when it's terrifying, even when the locks feel safer than what's on the other side." He walked slowly toward the tank. "Tonight," he said, I'll show you the difference between illusion and belief, between survival and surrender, between magic and love. He stepped inside the glass chamber. One by one, the chains clicked into place. A hush fell over the room like snow. Then the water began to rise. Milo couldn't look away. Every second inside that tank felt like a test. Zane's body moved with calm precision, slipping free from the cuffs, twisting through the impossible, his expression serene, except when his eyes found Milo's. There, in those fleeting moments, was something raw, vulnerable. True, and suddenly Milo saw it. Saw him. Zane hadn't been casting spells, he'd been choosing, over and over again, gently, quietly, repeatedly. He hadn't dazzled Milo with illusion, he'd waited. Waited through silence, through fear, through Milo's worst days and self-sabotaging tendencies. And this wasn't magic, it was love. Fierce, unconditional, real. The lock snapped open. The tank burst open with a dramatic flood of water and smoke. Zane stood center stage, dripping and radiant, as the audience erupted into applause. But Milo didn't clap. He ran. Backstage was chaos. Assistants ran around with towels and clipboards. Camera crews adjusted lighting. Harper shoved someone out of the way. Milo didn't wait. He spotted Zane in the wings, toweling off his hair, laughing with Dima and Theo, body still vibrating with adrenaline. Milo crossed the room in 4 quick strides, grabbed Zane by the lapels of his soaked jacket, and kissed him. Hard. The whole room froze. Zane melted. His hands found Milo's waist like muscle memory. The kiss deepened, sweet and breathless, 2 years' worth of longing and disbelief pouring into one impossible moment. When they broke apart, Zane searched his face, eyes stunned. Milo? Milo swallowed. I don't believe in soulmates. Zane blinked. Milo touched his cheek. But if I did? Zane's lips parted, trembling. Milo smiled, soft and certain. I'd still choose you. Zane's eyes glistened as he tucked a strand of Milo's hair behind his ear. Every time? Milo nodded. Every single time. They kissed again, slower this time, sweeter, everything finally aligned, and for the first time Milo wasn't afraid of what he felt, because it wasn't magic, it was Zane. Chapter 6. We're not pretending anymore. Milo hadn't planned on becoming someone who kept extra toothbrushes in his bathroom, but there it was, Zane's black and gold one, parked smugly next to his blue one like it had always belonged there. And of course, Zane used it like he owned the sink. Why do you squeeze from the middle? Milo groaned, frowning at the crumpled tube of toothpaste as he stood in his pajamas, hair sticking up in defiance. Zane leaned in from behind, shirtless and warm, pressing a kiss to Milo's neck. Because I like chaos. Milo elbowed him half-heartedly. You're a menace. Zane hummed against his shoulder. And yet, you let me sleep over. Again. Milo turned, brushing against him in the cramped space, pretending to glare. You snored. You drooled on my arm. Lies, Zane grinned. You literally said soulmates are a scam in your sleep. Sounds accurate. But then, Zane said, voice softening, you rolled into me like a lovesick octopus. Milo froze, then flicked toothpaste at him. You're insufferable. And you're glowing, Zane whispered, brushing a thumb over his cheek. You've been glowing since that night. Milo blushed, eyes flicking down. He didn't say it, but he knew it was true. Something inside him had shifted, quietly, permanently. The armor had cracked, and instead of falling apart, he'd fallen into Zane. And somehow, that had made everything easier. Weeks had passed since the Truth Act show, but the ripple effect still shimmered through their lives. Zane's name was suddenly everywhere. Interviews, awards, late-night talk shows. But even with the spotlight burning bright, he always came home to Milo. And Milo, for once, didn't mind being the quiet in someone else's storm. He'd even written a column, his first in weeks. The headline, Confessions of a Former Cynic, on magic, love, and the man who made me believe anyway. Sienna had cried in the office. Twice. People think you're proposing, she sniffled behind her mug. Milo had merely shrugged. Let them. That Saturday, Milo told Zane to wear something comfortable but not ridiculous, and absolutely no sequins. Zane, naturally, showed up in a silk burgundy shirt half-buttoned and fitted jeans that should have been illegal. What are we doing? He asked, letting Milo lead him through winding city streets under a sky that had just begun to blush pink. You'll see. He guided them up 3 flights of stairs and a rickety old ladder to a flat rooftop lined with strung fairy lights and 2 folding chairs, a blanket, and a small picnic set. Zane stopped short, his breath caught. This is... Milo smiled. Your first solo act. You did it here, right? Zane nodded slowly, eyes wide. How did you even find this place? Milo shrugged, suddenly shy. I called Harper. She made me swear I wasn't planning to propose. Twice. Zane laughed, stepping out onto the roof, arms wide. I was 17. Half the audience was just confused neighbors. You made a dove appear from your sleeve. It was a pigeon, Milo, a very grumpy one. Milo chuckled, setting out sandwiches and a thermos of spiked cider. I thought it was romantic. You weren't even there. No, Milo said, looking up at him, heart thudding. But I wanted to be. Back then I would have thought this was stupid, too much. But now... He took a breath. I wanted to believe in you the way you believed in me. Zane didn't speak. He didn't need to. He crossed the rooftop in 2 long strides, cupped Milo's face and kissed him, slow, sure, deep. The kind of kiss that unraveled time, unspooled every moment of doubt, and replaced it with warmth. Milo's fingers tangled in Zane's curls. The blanket rustled behind them. They sank into it together. Words stopped. Breathing quickened. Touch became language. The world around them blurred into starlight and soft laughter, whispered promises between kisses, heat blooming between tangled limbs and knowing hands. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't perfect. It was them. And it was everything. Later, when the sky had gone dark and the city hummed below them, Zane lay beside Milo, chest rising and falling in rhythm with the night. If you ever stop believing in soulmates again, he whispered, voice rough, reverent, I'll just have to remind you all over. Milo turned toward him, lips curling. You better. He kissed him again, lazy, lingering. Repeatedly, Milo added. Zane chuckled, pulling him close. Deal. The next morning, back in their shared apartment, Zane found Milo's column freshly printed, waiting beside his coffee mug. He read the final line 3 times. Maybe soulmates aren't about fate. Maybe they're about the one person who sees every version of you and chooses to stay, again and again. He folded the paper carefully, pressed a kiss to Milo's temple, and whispered, Exactly. They weren't pretending anymore, and that made all the difference.